exactly what it is. If you hear echo, it's only because um this thing goes to the live stream. So, in case anybody's already seeing this, yep, there it goes. Here we go. So we are live.
Hey.
What's up, party people? First of all, it's been a while since I've been live. I am still making YouTube videos. I had to wait till football season was over. So you will see YouTube videos pretty soon. But today I'm doing something a little different. I Once again, for those who are visiting this channel for the first time, I'm Dana Harris, and I am an online math tutor. I'm an educator for a very long time, going on 2 decades, and I have met some wonderful people in my travels teaching in North Carolina and now four different districts, and also what I like to name as my greatest teaching experience, which was in my hometown of Oakland, California, at
Ooh,
the great Montera High School, Middle
go
School. Oh
Go
Lord.
Toros!
Montera Middle School, great experience for me. And I got to work with some wonderful people. One of them is my co-host for today, Monica Black. I'm going to
Hey.
let you introduce yourself because you've done a lot of amazing things.
Woo.
So yeah, talk to the people, please, Monica.
All right, I'm Monica Black. I am almost 3 decades into this game of education. My passion is math ed. And in the last few years, 3 to 5 years, a lot of that has tied into the social emotional learning space, and how students' identity impacts how they show up in the classroom. So in that 27, 28 years, I have been an elementary teacher, instructional coach, consultant, advisor. I was an IB coordinator when we met. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm back in the elementary space. So I did a little stint, about five years in middle school. I've taught high school, summer school, and I've done professional learning for teachers K-12 in specifically the area of mathematics. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we came together is our mutual love of math ed. But there's all kinds of other things that come up for teachers that don't necessarily.
Resistance, uh, opposition, fire
Exhaustion.
starter, consultant, all those other
Exhaustion.
things. Exactly,
Trying hard
exactly.
not to cuss people out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a little harder these days. So today what we want to talk to the people about, for those of you who are watching this, first of all, do me a great big favor, like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah.
Bunch of resources. I lost count. I just know it's over 200 videos on this channel of different math resources. Some of them are direct lessons, some of them are conversations, and many other things that I choose to just record as content. But today, Monica and I are going to have a conversation about teachers. And we started this conversation really a long time ago, years ago, when we were both working at Montera in Oakland, California. And we always kind of somehow indirectly talked about teacher superpowers, right? And just to start this conversation off, Monica, one thing that comes to mind, and we kind of talked about this the other day, is sometimes I've heard a lot of people talk about teachers being superheroes.
Mm.
And I think that many times, if you ask a teacher what's their superpower, they think of it as more so tied to something that they do in the classroom. I can teach fifth graders how to go from a second grade to a fifth grade level in achievement in mathematics, or I can help your child increase 2 grade levels in their reading and other different things. And I think those are great things. Those are things that are the fruits, but you and I like to talk a lot about the root. So let's first, the question that I have for you is one of the things I always remember about you is when we first started having these deep conversations centered around math and teaching, right? You always talked about when I found my voice,
Mm.
dot, dot, dot.
Yes.
So share a little bit about how that shows up with you professionally, and how it shows up with you in the classroom, more so between you and students.
Gotcha. Ooh, I could go on forever about that subject. But I feel like I need to step a little bit back and kind of talk about before I found my voice.
Let's
Uh,
do it.
so I'm originally from the Philippines. I came here when I was 3. Although I wasn't the one that put us on the plane, I consider myself an immigrant to this
Hmm.
country. And I don't, as people who are closely related or know people that are immigrants to this country, you might understand that immigrants a lot of times put their head down and they don't want to draw attention to themselves because they are on the receiving end of a lot of racist shit.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
can I swear on here?
Yeah, we're
Anyway,
gonna cuss on here.
okay, good.
Just in case, disclaimer. We're definitely gonna cuss people. It's okay. You won't die. I promise you.
Right. And I can't, yeah, I'm surprised I was able to stop myself right there. Anyway, so on the receiving end of a lot of shit, and my parents, I saw it, I saw the things that they went through. And as I grew older, I understand what that came from. However, I was that very dutiful, rule following, good girl, right? And
Hmm.
so I did what other people told me was the right thing to do,
Hmm.
right? And so it took me a while, and I felt like a rebellious person because it never fit well within my soul,
Hmm.
right? And I'm learning now that that's because I was resisting the internalization of a colonized mindset, right? I mean, that's just, we could talk about that on another day. However, when I finally started to find my voice and do it in a way that people would actually listen,
Hmm.
that's another point for another time. But I went through the highs and lows of, finding my voice and speaking way too loud and without edit function. And there's a place for that too, right? There's a time and a place for that too. However, a lot of times when you're trying to facilitate thinking and have people kind of examine their mindsets, imposing your own way and your opinions at the outset is not necessarily the thing to do. However, I did find it and I found a middle ground. I found a great place in between where I don't always get it right. There's sometimes when there's still a little bit of that heat. And I think that sometimes that heat needs to come out. So I'm unapologetic about that, right? However, it doesn't always land. And
Hmm.
so, in the last few years, I've run into some things. I've been let go from one company, I've been non-renewed at another, and I've basically been just kind of annoyed the hell out of another another position. But you know what? That's my calling. Like, I think that that's one of my superpowers is that I have finally made peace that I'm not rebellious. I have some things to say or a different perspective, and I think they need to enter the space. So, um, yeah, that's about me finding my voice. I think that a lot of times I infuse a perspective that others don't have, or
Hmm.
others are they're afraid to say out loud.
Hmm.
And so again, sometimes it gets received well, and sometimes it's like, oh, I can't believe she had the balls to say that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe
Yeah.
she had the courage to say that, and she's tripping. That's why she keeps getting let go. But the
One
flip
of the
side of that
things.
is I always land, right?
Right. Exactly.
I have the confidence to do that. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the things that comes to mind when you talk about that, right? Because and I think this is part of the reason why uh you and myself and others that I enjoyed like talking to and even hanging out with, because I was always like, I don't go to work to make friends. And
Right.
so I started my career in North Carolina, and North Carolina is a non-union state. And
Mm.
so I found oftentimes there were a lot of either staff meetings or professional development sessions where it turned into a whining session. And because I was from California and I knew about unions, I had this running joke, and it was always like, "Hey, y'all, I got picket signs in the trunk." And they would just laugh. "Oh, here's your crazy." Did it? And it was like, so what? that was my way of saying, so what are we going to do about it? But the
Right.
question that you just brought to mind is that, do you think that part of those trials and tribulations you went through was because, especially in education, from my little short career, I believe, and I've interacted with a lot of people, but there are a lot of teachers that I don't think have a lot of self-awareness.
Mm.
And I think that they just go with the flow of a lot of things. I know for sure when my I always remember when we were doing staff meetings and even any kind of meetings out in Cali, right? It was like somebody's gonna say, let me push back. That was the first time I heard the phrase, let me push back, right? And at first I used to be like, wait, what? And then I got it. It started to make a lot of sense to me because it was in North Carolina. I always related it to like this is like a bad relationship where somebody's cheating on you or they're verbally abusing you or they're doing something to you that is some form of abuse, and you have to just take it because you need them, like you need whatever they're providing for you. And so I often found that that is what it seemed like was happening in my experience in North Carolina. But my question to you once again is do you think that part of those challenges that you had because you, like you said, you became a more self-aware person and you realized like, hey, when I flash back on my life, so many times I had to put my head down and just go with the flow, and I'm no longer going to do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those people that I just kept learning, right? And because I went to all these learning spaces, whether it be paying for my own travel and registration at a math conference
Hmm.
or going to an online webinar to just being in space, like it could be a lunch and learn, those
Hmm.
times when people would, host a lunch so that they could sell you something, right? But there was
Absolutely.
always something that I always went into these things saying, I don't care if I've seen this a million times, I'm going to find something new to get out of the
Hmm.
situation. And I think that that bias towards the learning at all costs
Uh-huh.
or despite the costs, I guess I could say,
Yeah, despite the cost.
it gave me a lot of knowledge that I implemented in my own classrooms, in my own practice as a coach,
Uh-huh.
um, that I think gave me my own story. So it wasn't just based on some quote unquote research says, right?
Hmm.
I would see something that sounded like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And I'd go do it. And I had my own stories. And this is how it worked. And this is how I struggled. And this is how I might do it differently. And I think that that builds a muscle of confidence that you don't always have to be right.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing wrong with your lived experience, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a couple different types of people, right? There's the people that are like, I never let them see you sweat,
Hmm.
right? So they're the ones that really don't want to ever see show failure. And then there's the weirdos like me. I'm sorry, I call myself a weirdo. This is not for everybody else.
I call myself a nerd, so
I embrace my weirdo. But my weirdo is the type that I live my life out loud. And that's gotten to be a problem when, my life involves other people, right?
hmm.
And so I try really hard to safeguard the other people who are part of the story. However, I don't have a problem sharing my good, bad, and indifferent,
The
right?
names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Hello. But I don't care. Like I
Yeah.
don't I'm a flawed character. I'm a flawed person. I think all of us are. And
Yeah.
some of us are a little more comfortable with that. And the reason I'm comfortable with it is that through everything, it's not a like knock yourself down and sit there and wallow in it. It's what am I supposed to be learning from this experience?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then I need to go either apply that learning, shift how I show up, do
Hmm.
things differently. Um, but I don't mind sharing the process to getting to where I am because I I have a confidence as a math educator and an instructional leader.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I'm the best person in the world, but I'm pretty damn good at what I do. And
Right.
I don't mind saying all of this. the stumbles and the missteps and all of the mistakes I made, because I came out on the other end of it with a lot of skills, which is why fire me if you want to, because I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I'm going to land somewhere because
Yeah.
I have a resume and I have a skill set and experience that I want to say speaks for my experience more than letters after my name would.
Right.
Right.
So let me interject for a second because I love what you just said. You reminded me of how there are so many educators that I've come across that had been in the business, if you will, for much more time than others around us. And sometimes young ones, the fresh out of college. I heard someone say at a PD session not too long ago, they were the Smarties. It was a PD session. They gave them Smarties because they said when
Ah,
you're fresh out of college, you know it all. But what I love about what you just said is that you said, I don't have to have all the answers. Yes, I'm in the position of leadership, but I don't have all the answers. And I want to get to know you all as my team members to help me find more answers.
mhm,
So I love that. Do you think that that is a skill that is like, do you have to develop that skill to no longer say, hey, I don't have all the answers, but I'm gonna keep shooting my shot. I'm gonna keep shooting my shot. Eventually I'm gonna make one.
mhm. I think that where that aha came to me was as a result of my cognitive coaching training.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so when I became a math coach for the first time back in 2001,
Hmm.
we were the first of this position. LA
Hmm.
Unified had they had literacy coaches, but the next year they added on math coaches.
Hmm.
And so I stumbled into this position because I initially applied to a literacy coach position, but I landed exactly where I was supposed to be.
Right.
And in cognitive coaching, one of the things that emerged from that training for me was that my role as a coach was to facilitate others thinking because they have the answers within themselves. There is
Hmm.
no amount of me lending you my eyes or me showing you all this student work or me showing you some data from some study that's going to make you want to do the thing that I'm putting in front of you.
Very true.
So I just got really, really good at asking questions. And um, because of that, I think people are like, wait, you're not going to tell me what to do? One of the first things that I heard in my initial years of coaching was just tell me what to do so that when it doesn't work out, I can blame you.
Whoa.
It's like, I mean, okay. And I don't, I'm not going to tell you that. Right. And I remember the person who was leading the cognitive coaching training saying that she called her friend up for some personal advice.
Uh-huh.
And that person was in coach mode and stayed in coach mode.
Uh-huh.
She's like, you're going to coach me, aren't you? Mhm. Can you just give me the answer? No,
Absolutely not.
because my answer is not your answer necessarily. Right.
Right.
And so I think that that's where that whole um, being a facilitator versus that's why I never wanted to be an administrator because administrators um, they have to make sure that the thing that the people above them want happens.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I've never wanted to be an administrator because I see administrators who want to push back on the system and yet they perpetuate and uphold the system.
Well, now see, now you're trying to start a whole nother podcast, Monica. I'm just so
I'm
you
just
know.
saying, this is why I like where the space I'm in. I love where I am because although I don't make the big money, and all
Right.
people have told me that we need somebody like you to run and open a school or lead a school.
Yeah.
No, I'm good where I am. And
Right.
when people say, "Oh, you're just a teacher," what? Just
Can
teachers
you
are
do what
ready
I
to
do?
go. Right.
Yeah.
Do the things that teachers do. And this is a labor of love because Lord knows we don't get paid for this shit.
This is it. So okay. So I love what you said about I've been I've been told that or whatever, the same thing. Oh, why don't you become an administrator? And I remember young in my career, had no intention of being a teacher. I tell people I was conned into being even a math major.
Right.
But I remember when I finally decided to be a teacher, I said, okay, I'm going to teach for about 5 years rather, and then I'm gonna go back to school to get an administration degree. And quickly, I seen there was too much brown nosing to me. Um,
I
the
mean,
eyes in the hallways and things like that. And I noticed that these were the people that wanted to be an administrator at some point. And I was just like, that doesn't sit well with me. My philosophy has always been if I if you do me a favor by putting me in a position to, let's say I'm in an AP, I'm an assistant principal, and I've been doing it for about 3 years, and I'm looking to get me a school, right? And I call you up and I say, Monica, hey, so I noticed, you got some pool up there. I'm looking to be an AP at Piedmont Middle School. Can you call somebody? Can you put my name in the bucket? Sure. The thing is you can always say, I helped Dana get that. You know what I'm saying? And my that prideful side of me, that the East Oakland comes out, and I'm like, no, I work for this. And so that's the one reason why I didn't go into administration. But to your other point, I didn't like the fact that exactly what you said. There are a lot of people who they go and become administrators, eventually principals, and they have these discrepancies with the system. They see over and over ways where the system lets down and fails kids of color. Because I'm speaking for our BIPOC community.
mhm,
But they see where this system lets down our kids of color, right? And they end up perpetuating the nuances of the system because they have a job to do. Because
mhm.
now, once you start making that good money, I mean, it's kind of hard to, especially if you have a family, it's kind of hard to let go of that good money. And so that's also why I've remained in the classroom over these years, because I can kind of talk my shit in the classroom. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like I can even down to certain things that I say to the kids. There's things that you and I can say to kids that other people can't say. And so I love that because this just a teacher idea. My story with that was I used to coach football when my sons were younger, right? And
Mhm.
and loved coaching football, man. Built some good relationships with some really rough around the edges kids. And to this day, a lot of them have a lot of respect for me when they see me and on social media. But I stopped because my boys, they got to school age and that took more time for me, right? And so I remember this one school that I worked at, a guy who I had been coaching with, I think he had become the head varsity basketball coach. And but he was still coaching football. And he was like one day in the hallway, he was like, Harris, hey man, when you gonna come back to coaching? I was like, right now, I need to just focus on being I forgot how I responded, but it was like, yeah, right now it's not gonna work out for me. Oh, so you're just gonna be just a regular teacher? And in my mind, I said, first of all, I'm 100 times cooler than you. Let's get that straight, black man. Um,
Right.
I'm 100 times cooler than you. And second of all, yes, because what I know about you and your life, we're not the same. We're not the same. The dude was married and had a couple kids, I think. But it was like, yeah, we're not the same. And part of that was because, raising, being a single father and things like that, during my time when he wasn't with his mom, it's a full-time job. You know what I'm saying? But I shared that piece because there's so many, that's another piece of why I never went into administration. My goal was to always, I never wanted to give more to other people's children than I gave to my own children.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so as I finish with that piece, another thing that I want to ask you about, because I think that this whole idea of superpowers is everything you're talking about is part of your story of how and why you show up the way you show up in the class. I can remember days when I would see you and you would have to walk in. to a classroom and maybe sub for a day. Or sometimes you were one that actually you and I knew I realized how it felt when I became a math facilitator when I came back to North Carolina. When you love this and when you love interacting with the kids, it's really hard to walk into a math classroom or a math lesson in elementary and not want to teach some math. I may not go grab your markers or your stylus and go teach on your smart board, but I am going to walk over there to Jose and see what Jose's doing and kind of see you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna teach somebody something. So when you look at your like when did you start discovering that you had a gift, a superpower in being in the space that you're in and out of classrooms without going up to that next level of being an administrator?
At the end of the day, for me, I love being with the kids. I love the light bulbs that come on. I mean, I mentioned that I taught summer school for high school kids who were trying to do credit recovery for Algebra 1. That
Hmm.
was just this last summer
Oh
at
wow.
at the
I
Mac house.
passed over that opportunity.
No, if it was, I'll be honest. Had OUSD not messed up and not taken my money out so that I could get paid during the summer, I would not have taught summer school. But
Uh-huh.
if I wanted to eat and pay my rent, I had to work, right?
Right.
Scared as shit because I have never taught high school kids. I've
Uh-huh.
taught high school teachers. And if they were any indication of how cooperative high school kids were going to be, I was like, oh, hell. Anyway, I go in there and I just, I reach into my bag of tricks. Shout out to UCLA Math Project and California Math Council South for all of the many learning experiences that I took advantage of through those two organizations. And I had all this great stuff for Algebra 1, even though I've never
Uh-huh.
taught Algebra 1, right?
Uh-huh.
I brought all my stuff in there with me. And yes, these kids were like disengaged. They were like, I don't want to be here. They were literally on their phones. They didn't give
Yeah.
a shit that we were in class. They're like,
I'm
I'm
just
a
here so I don't get fined.
right. And I mean, I would tell them put it away. They put it away for a minute and then come right back out. And anyway, at the end of all that, people were like, why don't you teach here? These are the kids.
Uh-huh.
We need a teacher like you. And I'm like, really? What? I didn't feel like you guys were responding to me. They're like, no, you're the kind of teacher that we need because you made it make sense to us. And so that is very fulfilling to me, even when it's not that overt or like they were very clear in their communication of that. I've got
Mm-hmm.
kids that just don't want to run out of the classroom
Mm-hmm.
because I'm their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that like I said, I've gotten all of these learning experiences. And when you're a new teacher, you just sometimes you go to these conferences and that stuff stays in the notebook in the bag that you brought back and it never comes out.
That's me.
But some of the stuff, I'm like, oh, I learned that great way of teaching fractions. And by the way, fractions is my favorite thing to teach ever. And I would do these things. And I remember teaching this thing called the fraction kit. Have you ever heard of it?
The fraction kit?
So you take all of these five or six, five congruent pieces of different colored construction paper,
Okay.
and you basically make from these same pieces
Yes,
the
I know
whole, the
exactly.
half, the
Yes.
quarter, the eighth.
Yes. Yes. As a
And
matter,
then
I think
you,
the last place I did that when I was teaching sixth grade. I
okay,
did that.
right.
And you
I've taught
staple them
that.
all together at the end?
No, I play a game with them. I play
Oh,
a few different games.
okay.
One of them's called cover up, where you're trying to cover the one whole piece
Uh-huh.
with, you roll some dice and you cover it up. And then another one is uncover.
Uh-huh.
Right. So basically, as you go through it, you move towards having a strategy based on what you know about pieces and probability and that kind of thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Because people are like, oh, there's only two half pieces. I'm just going to keep my two half pieces on.
Yeah.
Others were like, that doesn't come up because there's only one half on the cube and there's two eighths and two sixteenths. So I'm gonna load mine up with eighths and sixteenths or
Right.
whatever. Anyway, so I was teaching this, I was pushing into a classroom and doing a model lesson with this teacher. And these classrooms in LA where they had a adjoining door,
Uh-huh.
right? And so the teacher next door, who was always skeptical, oh, here comes Monica with her box of stuff and paper and stuff to cut and all of that, right? And he opened the door because he heard the kids were making all kinds of noise because they were
Uh-huh.
having a blast. And he comes in, he's like, "What are y'all doing?" And I said, "Ask them." And so here comes a kid.
Ooh.
I know that 1/4 and 2/8 equals 1/2. I know that 8/16 is 1/2. Like they had all of these equivalencies without having to find a common denominator.
Mm. Mm.
And he was like, and this was from the first time they played the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, what's there not to like? We're having fun. We're building and composing and decomposing things with our,
Absolutely.
and they're seeing why when I cut a piece in half, I get twice as many pieces. So that whole invert and multiply thing, right?
Right.
So there's so much that I gained out of going to these trainings. That was from a math solutions training. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would go and do it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a gift that keeps on giving because
Mm-hmm.
whenever I do it, something else wonderful comes out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I say this to say that I don't ever want to get that far away from children because I've tried to get further up, right? I've been on leadership teams on the ILT. I've been the, PLC lead. uh, I have, I've done these things and I've gotten so, and I've been in the room and I've been at the table at those district meetings. I remember Mr. Avent used to say, "Monica, they know you with the district." I was like, I just got here.
Yeah.
How do they know me? Oh,
Yeah.
they say your name. And I was like, oh, but I go into these spaces and as per my usual, I would push back
Mm-hmm.
and they hated to love me everywhere I go. They're like, damn it, she's right. Like I can't fight her. And I think that's where the confidence comes from because you can sit up here and tell me that I need to turn the pages of the book and be on this page by this date so that we're on pacing. But I got all these reasons why I don't need to do that.
Absolutely.
I've got all these beasts in the biz that have done all of their research. So you're going to tell me that this person that has a PhD in math education, for whatever piece of that there is, knows more than the freaking publishers of a boxed curriculum. And those people that are publishers of these and the authors of those boxed curricula, they also know the intention of the things that are on the page, right? So when you write your own lesson plan, you know what you want to happen. Now, if you were to hand me the slides and the paper with the notes, there's a lot of assumptions that you have inside of you that I don't have. So
I'm gonna
anyway,
I'm gonna add that to my list of things too.
we don't talk. I'm talking probably all hella over time. Anyway, but it just there's no amount of me having been taught being a teacher for 30 some odd almost 30 years now that is going to sit there and tell somebody that they don't know what they're talking about before I consider it myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So even the woman that told me that I just needed to fall in line and go with her pacing plan, which is basically a lesson a day,
Mm.
I was like,
Talking
all
my
right,
language again.
let me try it your way. I tried it for like a week. I was like, this ain't working
Yeah.
because I have to end up pulling all this other stuff because my kids are looking at me like, what are you talking about?
Absolutely.
Right? And the things on the page are never really telling you how it should be. No amount of amazing resources. The resources don't teach it themselves.
No.
So there has to be a thought process behind how am I, the teacher, going to engage students with this material, right?
Uh-huh.
I can't do that from the place of being an administrator
No,
or
you can't.
a district specialist or whatever. So I want to be in my position where I am, loving what I'm doing because I get to push back and they can get mad at me all they want.
Right.
But unless they have, I don't know, to me, you can have data. There's data that will support any side of the argument,
As a
right?
mathematician, we know we can create the data to
I love
look
it. Exactly.
the way we want it to look, or as we say about a lot of things, manipulate the data.
Manipulate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And so this is why, I'm really into let's create the conditions for these students to really look at what's in front of them and
right.
to be a critical consumer of what they are receiving. Because I could sit up here and open your head up and pour all this math information in and zip it back up before it can seep out. And if there's no understanding, it does not matter how much I poured into your head.
It's like when you you ever went to hang up things in your classroom and initially you put tape
Oh
and
God.
after a while it starts to just fall down and then you try something else. Sometimes depending on the material of the walls, if you put hot glue on the back of it, it'll stay. But my go-to became the Velcro strips
Love them.
because Velcro strips never fail. And I use that for the sake of when we're just throwing out that one lesson a day, a lot of times we're just putting tape.
Mhm.
We're putting tape on those mathematical signs in a kid's brain, and it's going to eventually just peel off. And so from that, what everything you just said, what I hear is, and it goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Your voice is your superpower. Like because you're not afraid to use it.
Right.
You're not afraid that okay, how is this person, whether they're a teacher or whether they are whatever position they're in, it could be the principal, the assistant principal, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the area superintendent, and every other kind of. I'm gonna say what I believe and how I feel and I'm going to represent what I stand for in regards to my position as a teacher or educator, whatever the title is that you've given me right now. And if me standing up for myself, because I am fighting for these kids, if that causes you to want to now terminate me, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, my phrase to pays. What are you going to do? Fire me?
Hello.
That makes more work for you. Okay. And although
Absolutely.
you can get somebody to replace, well, you can post my job tomorrow, but finding a replacement is it's difficult these days. But let's just say it's simple for that school or that position, right? But will you find another me? Will you find another person that's going to get in there and connect with these kids and say, okay, yeah, I know, because you similar to me. Okay, if you give me this curriculum,
Uh-huh.
I could look at the standards and say, hey, okay, let me dig through the standards. Okay, what's the nouns and the verbs in the standard? All right,
Mhm.
so they need to be able to do this specifically. They need to be able to apply the concept of adding and subtracting fractions. They need to be able to explain. We've done all of that. But we get in there and do that by simply saying, okay, we're going to cut up these pieces of construction paper. We're going to cut them into fractions and then boom. And before you know it, they done added, subtracted, multiplied, divide, and got way more conceptual understanding in that 30 to 45-minute activity than us sitting there teaching them just the theory from the book. So I love that because that is your voice, and your voice allows you to not only stand up for yourself, stand up for kids, but it also allows you to connect and see where a kid is coming from. I have a random question.
Wait,
Because we're almost at
before you go on to that question, you know how you
uh-huh.
said you might be able to fill my position, but you can't necessarily replace me. I
Right.
just posted this 2 days ago. I don't believe in competition because one, you can't be me, and two, I don't want to be you. So
Absolutely.
I just wanted to share that. But go ahead because
I
you said
I love that quote. Oh, see now, side note, real quick before I ask my question, I always say, listen, teachers will say, hey, well, how'd you do that? I can tell you everything I did, but it still may not be as effective for you as it is for me because we're just not the same people. But as I was listening to you today, right? Um, and this is a random question. It does involve your superpower. as a person who was an immigrant at a young age in the US, right? Do you see a connection to your lived experience as an immigrant young girl here in the US? Do you see a connection between that experience and the student that they may be from the United States or they may be an immigrant student, right? But do you see a connection to their experience or your experience with the kid who just they're an immigrant to the content? I'm not understanding what Mr. Harris is teaching today. I'm not understanding what Miss Black is teaching today. I'm not understanding what Dr. Gilliard Shine is teaching today. Yesterday I was winning, but
Mhm.
today I don't understand it. So do you see kind of a connection in those instances that help make you kind of like go hard for the kids?
Woo! So many things, but I'm just going to share two. Number one, I tell the story a lot because of the way I look and the way I present. People had what seemed like a positive implicit bias.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, she's Asian. She got math. We don't need to help her.
Mm-hmm.
And because I, was doing all the rebellious under the table using my fingers shit when I was like in third or fourth grade,
Yeah.
I became a human calculator.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what is valued is arithmetic and operations on numbers. And if you know your multiplication tables, you're a mathematician. No.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I still didn't benefit from somebody giving me the benefit of the doubt and thinking that I could do something. Because
Mm.
when it came to problem solving, because I was a follower, I didn't know how to go dig inside myself and say, you know what? I do subtraction by adding up, not by counting back from the bigger number. But that's not how the
Ooh.
teacher tells me to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm somehow doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that led to a lack of confidence, imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would show up in spaces and I would not raise my hand. Then I'm talking about elementary.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't raise my hand because I was questioning, did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure you got that right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I lacked the confidence because I'd never been given a voice to think about how I made sense of things. I just, can you follow this procedure? Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay. You're good at
Uh-huh.
math.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't find out till I was an adult and supporting other teachers in their math education that I had holes in my understanding. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it became very clear to me why I failed calculus at UCLA
Uh-huh.
and got my feelings hurt and I
Uh-huh.
left major. And I
Uh-huh.
should have stayed, but I wasn't ready, right? I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared for it. And so here I am. People are looking at me and like, oh, she can do this because she's Asian and she can do math. She's Asian. She knows how to do math. So I don't need to
Uh-huh.
help her.
Wow.
And what that created for me was I didn't achieve the levels of math that I could have.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to being a teacher, number one, I have hella good wait time.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I do that is there are the kids that their hands shoot up right away.
Right.
And so if you're somebody who needs to process, you may have a completely valid way of solving that problem, but it might take you a little bit longer. Where's the damn fire?
Yeah.
Right. So I do a lot of think time. I'm like, okay, show me you have a way. If you have another way,
Yeah.
give me these signals.
Yeah.
That's giving the other kids time to figure it out. Right. So, and when there's a kid who I'm like, what the hell are they doing?
Uh-huh.
I will sit down with them and I'm like, tell me about what you did. Because
Yeah.
who knows? They might teach me something.
Right. Right.
So the whole implicit bias, like I'm forever examining mine. I'm like, ooh, you made assumption that that kid wasn't going to be able to focus. And when you
Mm-hmm.
sit down with them and spend some time, you would be amazed at the brilliance these kids exhibit.
Yeah.
So that's how my immigrant experience shows up for me teaching students that aren't from here or whose voices have been silenced because it's assumed that they can't because they're all over the place, jumping around the classroom, getting pissed, traumatized, running out the door.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
think, oh, they need some Ritalin or whatever the heck the new ADHD medication is.
Right.
They need some Ritalin. They need to be medicated. They need to go to the culture keeper. They need to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to listen to this kid.
You know who you just made me think about. Ah, good old King Collins.
Oh my
King,
God, King Collins.
I tell you what, I hope I get the opportunity to see King the
Yes.
next time I am in Oakland. And because King, we know, I remember sitting in, and not to put his business out there too much, but I remember sitting in meetings advocating for him, right? And this one particular meeting, they went around the room. You know, we used to sit in that little powwow up there, and they went around the room, and
Did not say powwow.
nobody had anything good to say
Oh,
about him. And so it got to Mr. D, and then it got to me. And Mr. D said some good things about him. And then I said some good things about him. And I shared this story for the sake of saying this. I told them, I said, yes, does he have some behavior challenges? Absolutely. I said, but this whole narrative that people are painting that they're afraid of him, I refuse to go along with that. Yes, he's a big kid, but I said he is not a violent kid. He may be around picking at people to instigate a fight, but
mhm.
he's not gonna start a fight. But I say that to make this point. He taught me that to see past the fruit, if you will. What we see are these different behaviors of him every day. One minute he'll be chill, next minute he'll be wilding out and things like that. But I remember at the end of that school year, he was doing something just being funny. I remember him and Kavari used to walk around the halls like they were driving. And I stepped outside of my classroom and he said, "Whoop, let me go the other way. Mr. Harris don't play that shit."
Wait, you know how I was in the other building, just on the other side of the breezeway?
Yeah, yeah.
The girls' bathroom was right outside my door.
Right.
So my door could be closed, but I
Oh
could hear all
man.
the commotion outside.
Yes, you had some. Oh my
And so
goodness.
I would just come out in the hallway. I said, damn, nobody invited me to this party. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, I got a hall pass. I was like, I don't care. Like,
Right.
how y'all doing?
Yeah.
What you doing in the hallway? And they'd be you tell they're pissed off about something that happens. And it's like I
Absolutely.
would see a totally different side just because you listen.
That's it.
All you
You
have to do.
curious, be
Yes,
curious, not critical.
yes, yes.
And that's is some theory that I got from a book. Can't remember what book it was, but when I started applying that, and I feel like I've kind of applied it my entire career. Because I used to like in North Carolina, they have separate student restrooms from the kids' restrooms, right? Um, but I would just go in the kids' restroom because I wanted to catch who was smoking. They were smoking. My first classroom, they were smoking all the time right across the hallways. I'd go in there and
Right.
uh and I never was like, hey, I'm writing you up. Come with me to the hey, listen, y'all. Come on. This what we doing? In the middle of the day?
Right.
In the bathroom? Man, scram, get up out of here, man.
Right.
And some of them every now and then they give a little pushback still to this day. But it seemed like it was always like one in the area that was like, wait, dog, we got to get up out of here. He didn't say he was about to write us up.
Right.
He said, get rid of it and get gone. And I tell that because what you just did was when we roll up on the kids and just start being inquisitive, they're used to people coming out and
Yeah.
when you're like it's like you can see them think for a second like, wait, what did she say? What did he say? And it's like, yeah, yeah, I see what you're doing. Oh, I wasn't. Somebody got to look at him. Dog, you trying to explain? Get gone.
Right.
But that really is a superpower because it's easy to go into a space of learning and
Mhm.
say, hey, I'm an adult. you're a child. We come from the I'm an adult, you a child era, and like there's no questioning what I just said. You do as I say, you
Mhm.
know. And so I think that to be able to evolve with groups of kids over the years is it takes something special inside as a teacher and as an adult and as an educator to be able to evolve with that. And so one of the things that I want to spend the last 2 or 3 minutes to wrap this conversation up with is what is something that you would like to share with the educator, whether they're, fresh in the game, whether they've been past the 5 year mark. If you make 5 years nowadays, you're like a vet now. Or whether they've been, a career teacher 10 plus years. What is something that you would encourage to a teacher out there watching this to help them find their voice, if we say it in the words like you?
Ooh, I think the first thing that comes to mind is like you said earlier. When has a teacher ever gotten fired for having low test scores or not hitting the mark on a pacing plan? When has that ever?
Definitely not the pacing guy. No.
So, I mean, it's funny because when I was in Montera and I was like wearing all these hats, one of them being a wannabe math coach, because that was really what I wanted to do, but I had to be an IB coordinator first. Um, I would again go to these math coach meetings, come back to the
Mhm.
school, and they're like, has everybody input their assessment scores? And I would laugh because I would go back to the school and I'm like, okay, here's the assessment. This is when it was supposed to be in. Get it in, like you said.
Yeah.
And not maybe one teacher had
Mines
any
were never
intentions,
in.
of giving the assessment, much less putting it in to eliminate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I forget who said it, but teachers have the power.
They do.
We can go and go like not in the meeting, and then go into our classroom and do what the fuck we need to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And because, like I said, stay learning, even if I'm like, oh, here we go again, even if that's what I could say.
Hmm.
I was like, there's something else I'm gonna come out of this with.
Yeah.
I've gone through so many trainings for this, that, and the other. I used to hate going to PBIS trainings because I'm like, intervention, the word intervention already was like skirt, like triggering. I don't even want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Um, but I would go in there and I'm like, okay, there's something out of here. And so it might be the way the person facilitated the meeting. I would take that and put it in my little facilitator bag of tricks.
Right.
Even though I didn't necessarily internalize PBIS, there were other things, the relationship building. That's what I zoomed in on. Right.
Absolutely. Every time.
And and so this is my thing. I'm like, keep learning. Yes, it seems like we're exhausted and we're tired and this is a lot. I got to put my own money in this shit. I get it. Not everybody has the capacity or the irresponsibility, if you will, to, spend my money on stuff when I got all this other stuff that I should be saving for a house. Man,
Yeah.
I want to go to this
Yeah.
conference. But what that has done for me is these last 3 years have my last three roles before this one that I'm in right now
Hmm.
damn near broke me.
Oh, wow.
The first two, one got me away from Oakland Unified because they were like, oh, we're this anti-racist, equity-focused, feminist-run org.
Hmm.
They were the absolute opposite of all of it and upholding white supremacy culture like nobody's business.
Wow.
And after 10 months of being there,
Wow.
because there was no everybody has their timeline,
Yeah.
or you could come here in your full intent, your whole self, your whole authentic self.
Yeah.
You tell me to do that. And when I did, and I put back, yes, your timelines and your ways, you were like, yeah, you got to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had moved to another state.
Uh-huh.
I had to break a lease, get another job. I got a job in Southern California like this.
Uh-huh.
Job I thought I was going to love. Again, I pushed back on some racist ass shit.
Hmm.
And when you hold up mirrors to people, they don't like it. I don't care how progressive they want to say they are, how much they want to talk about equity, this, that, and the other, how
Yeah.
much they talk about capitalism is the devil.
Yeah.
But straight up holding that shit, right?
Yeah.
And so that second job damn near broke me because as I was looking for a new job,
Hmm.
all of the jobs were saying, yeah, I need letters of rec from your last two roles. And I was like, I'm gonna let the last two jobs, racist ass motherfuckers,
Yeah.
gonna undo the rest of my 20 some odd years in education.
Mm-mm.
I broke a little mini break,
Hmm.
right? And then, because I am who I am, I like put your head down, solution focused. Feel the shit. It felt horrible.
Hmm.
I had to go through group therapy. Like I was in
Hmm.
a look, here we go again with a what do you call it? Vulnerable moment. I was in a partial hospitalization program, which meant
Uh-huh.
that I had to be in group therapy 3 days a week,
Uh-huh.
all day. And it was funny because those people were like, Monica, why are you in there? You should be leading this shit because of the things that would come out of my mouth. And so it reminded me, Monica, you have what it takes to get up and brush yourself off and use what you have experienced, your lived experience, to go make sure this shit does not happen to another person of color. And
Absolutely.
so that's my activism. I go into spaces and I'm like, what kind of chaos? I think you saw my quote that I put on
Yep.
the teacher studio. What kind of chaos can I bring into this space
Yeah.
that not one child has to go through the things that I've gone through? And so, number one, stand up in your power. You are not going to get fired. You might get,
Exactly.
because Monica doesn't ever like watch her mouth, but I also have shit to back it up.
And
So
that's the thing when you it's kind of like when you stand on business, as the young people say now, um, understand that you got to have something to back it up with. You can't just be whispering sweet nothings to talk your shit. You got to know, you got to have something that's your unique sales proposition to the kids. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's, all right, well, we're gonna have fun learning math, or whether it's, hey, the discipline in that classroom is minimal, or whatever it may be.
and I'm a
And
name dropping fool. Because Oakland has gotten into this. We're gonna build a sense of belonging and joy. You know where that comes from?
mm,
Goldie Muhammad, Doctors Goldie Muhammad, uh, Abolitionist Teaching Network, Dr. Batia,
uh-huh.
Chris Emden. I'm like reading
Yep.
that Ratchetdemic right now.
Yep.
Um, so many others. But I'll name drop some shit because, of course, the names that I'm going to drop are going to be scholars of color because I'm tired of giving any more free publicity to people who have built off of the work of scholars of color, um, which is why I have a love-hate relationship with U Cubed. Because, yeah, no, that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay.
Anyway, so yes, do what you need to do. If you need to like sit up there and hang your hat on somebody else because they are getting the respect that your district is quoting, I'm
Yeah.
like, you said I was not going to spirit murder these children anymore, but you continually giving these standards based these the SBEC.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, I just ran
Yep.
off at the mouth, and you
But
said,
no, I like that because this is we're gonna do this more often as we have been, planning and curating this thing. And so I want to give just a piece of wisdom to the people before we close out.
please,
Um,
because I feel like I've just taken up all the space up in this room.
and that's what I wanted it to be. Pay attention to some things that Monica said. Number one, look, go within and find your superpower. What is it that you do like nobody else can do in the classroom with these kids, or in whatever space it is that you are in, as in education. Number two, remember, it takes in if you're not doing some extreme things that I shall not name, you're not going to get fired. The worst
Hello.
thing that's going to happen is they're going to put some negative information into your observation, and you can always talk your way out of that if you've got some data or just some lived experiences. If you know how to talk and communicate in an interview, the next job will hire you, trust me, especially if you teach math.
They're
They'll
not looking
pick
at
you up.
they're not looking at your folder.
Right. And last but not least, be be cognizant of opportunities where you can connect your own lived experiences to the experiences of your students. And as you do that, you will see beautiful things start to unfold. So, we are going to end this conversation. Monica, as always, these conversations are great. I can't wait till we do the next one
Yes.
in a couple weeks. And tell the people how they can follow you before we get off of here.
Oh, thank you. I first of all, I want to thank you because I started a passion project called Inside the Teacher Studio. You can find that on Instagram. All one word, teacher plural, Inside the Teacher's Studio. And the whole point of that was really to celebrate teachers and the artistry of educators because we have all kinds of creativity that we can bring to the space. And I like to lift that up, right? And so
Mhm.
you can find me there. I'm One Feisty Female. That's my personal one where I'm always running off at the mouth. However, yeah, follow me on those socials on Threads, on what's the other one? Facebook.
Instagram, Facebook,
Instagram's where I mainly post. Um,
Instagram.
but you'll find me on those other spaces too. So
Cool. So
thank
y'all
you for
look for
letting
Monica out
me.
there causing chaos in the academic space on IG. And
Yes.
shout out to Monica. And we look forward to this next conversation. In the
Thank you so
meantime,
much.
until next time, as I always like to say, deuces. All right, Monica, take care.
Thank you.